This is episode 499 on the 23rd of 25th of March 2022. Once again, this is episode 499 on the 25th of March 2022 as the greatest talk show on the planet, and its road to 500,000 episodes continue. Well, something very special is planned for the 500th episode, but you have to wait just a few days, just 48 hours before we celebrate the greatest celebration of the greatest talk show on the planet. But for this morning's episode, let's discuss something unique and something different. You have often heard this term. It is a poor workman who blames his tools, or its Hindi version of Naaj na aave angan teda. What does it mean exactly? In sports, most of the sports, it's the skill of the athlete which is in focus rather than external conditions. What is the size of the ground? Is the ground wet? Or in high jumps and other such sports, is the pit well manicured? Will the athlete slip while doing his high jump? These things don't matter. But in a certain sport, external conditions and blaming that window yard of concrete is important. In fact, if batters and bowlers don't perform according to their own expectation, they blame the pitch and external conditions. Let's look at some parallel examples. Writer blaming the pen or the keyboard for lack of interesting content. If you read an article and you feel that the article doesn't have that weight, and if you ask the writer why doesn't it have that weight, the writer will say, my pen stopped working, I could not think, or my keyboard didn't have the battery, or I could not see the key on the keyboard and the keyboard was becoming messier, or some of the keys were malfunctioning. Should you blame the pen or the keyboard for lack of interesting content? Similarly, for a painter, if the painting is not up to expectation of what the painting has been so far, then the painter says, I could not hold the brush properly. The grip on the brush was not coming. So you blame the brush if you're not able to create a beautiful painting or something extraordinary. And then the speaker blaming the microphone if the voice is not audible. Before a function starts, we often see the organizers doing a mic check. Hello, mic testing. Which is fine because mic check is important if you are in an audience in front of over 1,000 people. But the speaker should be able to adjust that. If the mic doesn't work, if you have a good voice, you can speak to 1,000 people even without the microphone. It's impossible, but you have to improvise. But you cannot blame the microphone if your voice itself is not audible. So these are some of the parallel excuses that are often seen if the content is not interesting, if the creative is not up to the mark, or if one's voice is not audible, blame external conditions, because as the term goes, Naach na aabe, aangan teda, or it is the poor workman who blames his tools. But what happens in the sport of cricket? There are some classic excuses which are used by everyone, from athletes to the external, that is the coaching and the management, and the commentators, whose jargon as far as the sport goes keeps diminishing day by day. Let's look at some of the classic excuses they use. You must have heard this a million times. There is a pitch report before every match. What are some of the common things the commentators repeat? It's hot conditions, the pitch is dry, there are cracks developing, the pitch may turn from ball one. How do you know? It's nothing more than concrete, but it's all supposition. Or since it's dry, it may aid reverse swing. Let me tell you, things like reverse swing and turn is on the skill of the bowler and not on external things like pitches and external conditions, if it's hot or if it's windy. And then one thing which really puts me off is the glue factor. Everyone says around 9 p.m. local time, the glue will start forming. The bowlers will not be able to grip the ball, and therefore the team want to chase. And we saw this in the 20-over World Cup. The team exploited this situation and said, we will bowl first, so that we can avoid glue situation and allow our bowlers to bowl first, because the ball will be dry, and then we will be able to restrict the team to a lower score. That's the way things are. And then once upon a time in the 1920s, 1930s, I've heard this a million times from commentators who weren't even present in the 1920s, 1930s. So it's just speculation and hypothesis that there was a covered versus uncovered pitches there. Now, if it rains, the pitches are immediately covered, or once the game ends, the pitches are covered by the groundskeeper so that external conditions do not impact it. And then, once upon a time, when there was no practice of covering the pitch, that concrete 22 yard of rubbles and stones, or whatever you can call it, a pitch was not in focus. The pitches were uncovered. The ball could swing, the ball could seam, it was hot conditions, the ball could turn. And then another ridiculous example is pitch is covered, the pitch starts sweating. How do you know the pitch is sweating? Have you seen the pitch sweat? Is there a camera underneath the cover where you see the pitch sweating? And how could you use terms like sweating for inanimate object? But that's the way things are. These are some of the classic excuses which are used, and there is nothing you can do about it. The focus is so much on the pitch and external condition. If it rains before a match, the ball will aid swing. If it's hot and humid at 35 degrees, the pitch will dry, it will crumble, cracks will open, and then you all have to do is bowl on the rough. Or if it's a left arm spinner, it will aid the leg spinner. If it's a right arm fast bowler, it will aid the leg spinner or left arm spinner, whatever it is. And then it also makes a difference from which end you bowl. This end is offering more turn to this bowler. That end is offering swing to this bowler. That shows the lack of coherent content, and also the fact that commentators don't have anything to say. They know that only reason they are recruited is because of the lack of commentators, or if you have some good quality coherent commentators, they will ask for such a high price that the broadcasters won't be able to recover it. Therefore, you go for the cheaper option by not giving them too much, and then when you have a cheaper option, the comments are equally economical or frugal. That's the thing. Now let's take a look at this example. In the Bangladesh-South Africa tournament, Bangladesh won the first one by scoring 320. In the second one, they were bowled for 190. So what was the excuse? The captain said uneven bounce at the Wanderers for their dismal batting show. So they did say that our batters played the bad shot, but we were not able to cope up with imaginary things like bounce. The ball was bouncing. Sometimes the ball was too low. Well, that's the skill of the bowler. The pitch doesn't do anything, but when you start talking about the pitch, it shows that you don't have ability in your skills. Well, sometimes even in tennis, grass courts versus artificial courts are also an excuse. Even that's a ridiculous thing. That a certain tennis player prefers playing on grass courts, another tennis player prefers playing on probably the artificial courts. How does it matter? What has it to do with modern day situations? Whether it's artificial courts or artificial grass at Wimbledon or Australian Open or US Open or wherever the tournament is happening is really irrelevant. It's a skill of the tennis player, it's a skill of the player. In football, we don't look at things like that. It's the ball, it's the game between the ball and the player. Whether the ball bounces high or not, it's upon the skill of that particular athlete. In football, in hockey, you have the hockey stick. You may say that my hockey stick wasn't giving me assistance. It's an inanimate object. The hockey stick is in your control, just like the pen is in the control of the writer. If you're not able to write properly, it's not the pen, it's your mindset. If the microphone is not working, you can still improvise. If you're not able to grip the brush well, practice better. But don't blame external condition, or the terminology will always be naach na aave, aangan tera. Well, this is not even an example which is worth looking at. Let's look at something even more interesting. Now, the match referee who sits in his room and looks at the game, and all the match referee does is write his report on the behavior of the players or the behavior of the pitch. That's all they do. And they are like, well, I don't know what the match referee does anyways, but this is a very interesting thing. The International Cricket Council has delivered its verdict on the pitch at the Bangalore Stadium, Chinnaswamy Stadium, used for the pink ball test between India and Sri Lanka. The pitch received a below average rating in the report submitted by the ICC match referee. As a result, the venue will receive one demerit under the ICC pitch and outfield monitoring process. Ridiculous. In the report, Srinath said the pitch offered a lot of turn on the first day itself, and though it improved with every session, in my view, it was not an even contest between the bat and the ball. This is an excuse. This is just a blame game. If it's the bowlers who do the turn and the bounce situation, it's the skill of the bowlers. The batter is not able to cope up. The batter is not able to cope up. I can give a lot of examples, but I'm sure 25 years ago you weren't bothered about such things, and it improved. I mean, it's just something made out of concrete. How can an inanimate object improve? It deteriorates. We use terms like by the end of day 5 it will deteriorate. The turn and bounce will come into play. Reverse swing will come into play. Reverse swing or whatever be the thing. It's the skill of the batter or the bowler. If we start putting the pitch in focus, then we are not respecting the skill of the bowler and the batter and other individuals in the ball. When the ball keeps low, that's the skill of the bowler. Whether the batter is able to hit a ball which turns, let's suppose that's the skill of the batter. Nothing to do with the pitch, nothing to do with whether it's hot or whether it has rained and it's offering turn and bounce, lovely condition. Once upon a time, I was affected by this whenever I say In England, you must have heard these terms. Nami ke karan ball swing karegi. You must have heard this in video commentary or TV commentary. The ball has nothing to swing. The view or the bed condition or whatever the term Nami means has nothing to do with the ball. The ball swings because the bowler knows how to outfox the batter. And if the batter edges the ball, bad luck for the batter, good luck for the bowler. But let's continue this particular report. According to the revised ICC pitch and outfield monitoring process, venues whose pitches are rated below average by match referees receive 1 demerit point, while 3 and 5 demerit points are awarded to venues whose pitches are marked as poor and unfit. I don't think any country wants to deliberately receive such points, but what you cannot control, you cannot control. Demerit points remain active for a rolling 5-year period, and if it accumulates 5 demerit points or more, it is suspended from hosting any international cricket for a period of 12 months. If that's the case, then no venue in the world deserves to host any international sport, especially cricket, because it will always happen like this. In 2015, Australia was bowled out for 60 against England. So how do you look at it? I saw the video, I saw the live game. It was the skill of the bowler who was able to outfox the batter, and the batter kept on edging. Sometimes you don't edge the ball, sometimes you edge the ball, sometimes you play a shot where the ball misses the bat and it hits the stumps. Poor shot selection, maybe something to do with the pitch. Absolutely not, but that's the way our mindset is. We look at it as this animate object which will improve by every session or whatever is the process. This is nothing. Let's look at another report. The pitch in Rawalpindi from the historic test between Pakistan and Australia has received a below average rating from ICC match referee Ranjan Madhukar. Madhukar rated the pitch at the Pindi Cricket Stadium in Rawalpindi as below average, interesting, resulting in the venue receiving 1 demerit point under the ICC pitch and outfield monitoring process. In his report, Madhukar said the character of the pitch hardly changed over the course of 5 days, and there has been no deterioration apart from the bounce getting slightly lower. Now look at these words, the character of the pitch. It's not a human being that the character will change. Because runs were scored, each team scored over 400 runs, and there were the bowlers were not able to take wicket despite their best efforts, and therefore there was no deterioration. So if there was no deterioration, still in this situation, some bowlers are able to take the pitch out of the equation and do their skills. The pitch did not have a great deal of pace and bounce for the seamers, nor assisted the spinners as the match progressed. It's not supposed to do that. The fast bowlers and the spinners are supposed to use their own cerebral and their experience and do the job they're supposed to do. If you depend on the pitch, like if a rider depends on the pen, then that's the end of the world. These are just assisting. They're not supposed to impact. They're not supposed to be an important factor. But when pitches and the conversation around pitches become an important factor, it shows the quality of commentators, shows the mindset of the batters that if the pitch is flat, I will not take a wicket, I will not take a wicket. That's all in the mind. As the match progressed, in my view, this does not represent an even contest between bat and ball. Well, the even contest between bat and ball is on the batter and the bowler, not on the pitch. Therefore, in keeping with the ICC guidelines, I rate this pitch as below average. But because the ICC match referee is supposed to do something, it's supposed to give some kind of report at the end of the match, whether it's negative, positive, or somewhere in between. So, and they're supposed to follow a certain script. They cannot evade that. So they think that let's give it below average because that will make everyone happy and sing. Because so pseudo experts all over the world were clamoring poor pitch, and they were using these terms. The match referee said, "Let me go with the flow of what everyone wants, and let me give it this particular weighting." But this is something very interesting. Everything is weighted except commentators. The broadcasters rates performance of the players. I've seen it so many times. They rate the performance on criteria which is unfair, but they rate it. The pitch is weighted, the ground is weighted, the groundkeepers are rated, but commentators are always able to escape. But for me, commentators also receive such weighting as unfair, poor, because they are supposed to have an influence on the game, and therefore for me, Indian commentators from my side receive an unfair rating, 5 demerit points, and should be suspended if it goes to 25. Should the commentators be rated with significant weight, an inanimate object which is not the most important thing in a game, then why don't we rate some living objects who are supposed to be an influence in the entire game? Because I've seen commentators, the pitch is not offering turn and bounce. The bowlers are not able to do the job because the pitch is not assisting them. They keep putting these things in the mind of the people. They keep polluting such ridiculous and imaginary things. I don't like it. I don't think the pitch is that important. And why then you can play with robots? Replace human beings with robots. If pitch is so important, if you think that the bowlers and the batters depend on the pitch, I don't think it makes a difference. The bowler has good skills. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. That's the way things are. Therefore, commentators should also receive ratings from excellent to unfit. And who should rate them? Well, let the match referee rate them, because the match referee has anyway nothing to do. They're watching the game in the comfortable cushion AC room. So why don't we give match referee and add this qualification and say you listen to the commentary and you rate the commentators. Even if the commentators are not directly employed by the international council or the local boards, still they should. This ends episode number 499 on the 25th of March 2022. Stay tuned for the next episode. And while you wait for the next episode, what should you do? Put these legendary and classic books in your must-read books column. Once again, put these legendary and classic books in your must-read books column.